Witch Hat Atelier. The adaptation of Kamome Shirahama's manga has outstanding artistic direction, fantastic writing, lovely voice acting, just everything.
Will you keep our secret?
I promise.
But don't go rush off and watch the latest episode of Witch Hat Atelier just yet. I mean, definitely do that later, but stick with me here for a bit, because I've been thinking about something recently. The story of Coco's journey as a witch apprentice and the world of magic that she unlocks and explores has a few interesting ties to real life, namely in the form of those cool, pointy hats that all witches wear in the Witch Hat Atelier universe. Now, there's a lot of historical precedent for those, whether we're talking about the hat that Coco wears or the brimmed caps, which are worn by the more lawless magic users. Even outside of them, frequently appearing in pop culture, it goes deep. And today, we're gonna dive into it. So, draw a rune on your sylph shoes, and let's fly. First, the word witch. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, that actually stems from two Old English terms. Witcha, meaning a man that practices witchcraft or sorcery, and wicke, which denotes a woman practicing witchcraft or sorcery. Depictions of witches go far as back as early translations of the Bible, which details both the acts of witches and the general bad vibes that have often been attributed to them throughout history. But witchcraft encapsulates a spectrum, so don't go thinking that they're all wicked, even if the cackling green lady stirring a pot of bubbling goo is what you usually see. Just like in Witch Hat Atelier, there is a lot to take into consideration before you start casting judgment.
This guy stinks!
Now, the modern cultural idea of witches tend to come from the Renaissance period, between the 1400s and the 1700s. In that era, witches were usually depicted as older women who have used magic to curse and sicken people and lands. When put into paintings and drawings, they were typically garbed in black robes or sometimes even shown to be naked. We can't show you that, though, because we just can't, okay? It's YouTube and all the other stuff. This archetype, though, prominent in England and Western Europe, appeared around the world as well. For example, look at the Slavic legends surrounding the Baba Yaga. No, not the guy in the black suit killing people with a pencil. The original Baba Yaga was usually depicted as an old lady riding a wooden bucket and lives in a hut that's on chicken legs. Beast mode. Baba Yaga was sometimes portrayed as monstrous and cruel, and sometimes as oddly supportive, but one attribute remained fairly stable. She was cunning and intelligent. When you see the witches in Witch Hat Atelier favoring their brains over power, that wasn't just invented for the series. Witches are known for being clever thinkers, even if stories sometimes have them devour people. That's just, brain food. Food for thought. Sorry I said that. We tend to focus on the monstrous and cruel things way too much though. Witches, or a fear of witches, ignited a real-life paranoia on both sides of the Atlantic. The reasons for this range from particular religious terrors to simply outright misogyny. Alarm over witchcraft reached a fever pitch, and witch hunts were tragically common for a long time. But what about the hats? As we saw when Coco received her witch's cloak and cap after the Dada range test, she dons her witch drip. Call Coco Ranch, 'cause she be dressing. And in pop culture, a witch and its clothing have become inextricable. Well, the societies being founded in America around the time of the Salem witch trials had a ton to do with how we'd eventually see the witch as a cultural figure. As you'll notice in the pictures from then, the witches on trial rarely wore those famous black hats that would become synonymous with them. That's likely because the Salem witch trials primarily took place among Puritan communities, in which the headwear for women was typically a scarf or a bonnet. According to some, the traditional witch hat, on the other hand, came from a style associated with the Quaker communities, groups that might not have had a heavy involvement with the witch trials, but were often persecuted for their beliefs. Quaker women who preached were some of the ones punished or accused of witchcraft, and according to historian Amelia Montgomery, they sometimes wore this garb of large black-brimmed hats. However, this isn't the only thread that led to witches being signified by big conical hats. A conical hat has long been considered a sign of mistreatment. You know, like the fabled dunce cap, which we saw used as a humiliation tactic for kids that just couldn't get it together in school. But like our buddy, the Baba Yaga, there's surprises in store there too. Those caps were initially created as a sign of scholastic aptitude. Yes, wearing one meant that you were a scholar, not a class clown. Look at that. Do I look smart now?
No.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
I don't even want to wear it anyway.
Just to suffer?
Allegedly, it's this idea of the conical hat being a sign of intelligence that helped build the image of wizards, fiction's favorite wise people wearing the same kind of hats. And considering Witch Hat Atelier's focus on learning, it definitely reclaims the cap as something positive. So the idea of conical witch hats didn't come from one single place in history, but they would become cemented in our minds as an irreversible part of the witch wardrobe in 1693. Author Cotton Mather's unsympathetic portrayal of the Salem witch trials, Wonders of the Invisible World. It's often debated whether or not Mathers meant that all witches wore pointy hats when he tried to justify that heinous event, but regardless, it has stuck as a striking, defining image. But how were many of those images made? A lot of the witch art from that time period and in the century after were woodcut drawings, unmistakable style that used carved images on wood blocks to impress inked drawings onto paper. Fast forward a few hundred years and we see Kamome Shirahama's amazing manga art, which the author has said was inspired by woodblock prints. So the art that popularized the vision of the witch for generations served as an influence for a manga creator that would eventually come to redefine the witch. It's all come full circle. It's history, y'all. History. Or more like it's her story. After the end of the 17th century, witch hats would show up with increasing frequency. Whether in art or literature, it especially became prevalent in children's media, like stories or fairy tales. If you look at art of witches related to classic stories like The Frog Prince or Hansel and Gretel, you'll often find them wearing witch hats, sometimes even without the presence of explicit witchcraft. Perhaps the ultimate representation of the witch with a big pointy hat comes from the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz and The Wicked Witch of the West. It's also worth noting that Glinda, the Good Witch, wears a big hat in the film as well, and that in the book, the Wicked Witch possesses a tall, pointed golden cap, which is an artifact of immense power. Whether they're brimmed or not, witches and giant hats have become synonymous with one another. And witches are worldwide too. For example, in Japan, witches are a frequent figure in folklore. They're often related to certain animals like cats, snakes, or foxes, and one of the most famous of these is likely the Yamaba, or the Yama-uba. She's a mountain hag that has origins in the 14th century. Across Africa, the witch has been classified as everything from a valuable healer to a demeaned social outcast. So, it's clear that there are witches around the world. There are even different types of witches in Witch Hat Atelier. The series makes a certain distinction though. The pointed cap witches, which Coco belongs with, have hats without brims. They use magic according to these certain laws that dictate how it should ethically be used. Meanwhile, the brimmed cap witches have rejected the pact that decreed that you don't use magic for nefarious or illegal means. Why the separation? Well, on a purely aesthetic basis, the brim of the cap obscures the face. It casts a shadow, implying that something is being hidden, perhaps something devious. No, brim means purity and openness and innocence. And thanks to the depictions like the Wicked Witch of the West, the ones with brims have become cultural shorthand and immediately identifiable as the mean one. It's a powerful image, one Witch Hat Atelier uses to amazing effect. So, there you have it, the history of the witch and the witch hat. It's not something that came from one specific place, and it took a whole world of culture, centuries to create what it means now. Okay, now you can go back to watching Witch Hat Atelier on Crunchyroll. All right, let me do a spells. I want the editor to edit some spells coming out of my hands. Pya, 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 and then I'll do a little drawing. And then I want the editor to make a giant explosion. Good luck. Thank you. Bye. I want fireworks, editor. I want fireworks popping.